Good evening, everyone. A big night on many fronts. A very scary, very fluid situation right now in the North African country of Algeria. Conflicting reports of the Americans held hostage there and the status of a recent rescue operation that took place today by Algerian forces. We'll have all the latest on that coming up. Also tonight, according to reports, Lance Armstrong admitting he used performance-enhancing drugs. His interview tonight with Oprah. We'll talk to people who say their lives were destroyed by Armstrong's lies and ask them what they will be listening for. We begin, though, tonight, keeping them honest, with a story that is frankly beyond bizarre, the Manti aTEO hoax. Here's a football hero, his dying girlfriend, a team that's counting on him, a team, Notre Dame, where Hollywood endings are almost a birthright. Where back in September, linebacker Manti aTEO makes 12 tackles, powering the Irish to victory over Michigan State, even though he said he just lost his grandmother and his devoted girlfriend, Lene Kekua. Now, Notre Dame would go on to play in the national championship game. aTEO would nearly win a Heisman Trophy. Cue the credits, grab a hanky, call up Sports Illustrated, put him on the cover. But just like the feel-good hit of the summer, the Manti aTEO story isn't real. The girlfriend didn't die. She didn't even exist. Now, aTEO, his family, and Notre Dame say he was simply the victim of a hoax. But keep in mind, the record, including aTEO's own statements, cast doubt on the notion that it's just that simple. And whether or not he was duped, virtually everyone who covered the story was. Did they see what they wanted to see and not look any closer than that? They saw the girlfriend, Lene, and her Storybrooke meeting with aTEO. Their stares got pleasantly tangled, writes Eric Hansen in Notre Dame's hometown paper. Then aTEO extended his hand to the stranger with a warm smile and soulful eyes. That's from the South Bend, Indiana Tribune, describing how aTEO and Lene met 3 years ago, allegedly. The article quotes the father, Brian aTEO, who says she would travel to Hawaii to see Manti, first as friends and then romantically. But keep it honest, though aTEO's own statement yesterday says nothing about any face-to-face encounters. Quote, "We maintain what I thought to be an authentic relationship by communicating frequently online and on the phone, and I grew to care deeply about her." So was Brian aTEO, his father, lying to the reporter Eric Hansen, or was Manti lying to his father about her visits? Manti's recent statements only muddy the waters. Listen once again to aTEO speaking to ESPN back on September 15th. He talks about being reunited with his grandmother and his girlfriend.
I'll miss him. But I know that I'll see him again one day.
Not, I'll finally meet her one day, but I'll see her again. If, as Manti now says, he was the victim of a hoax, that the relationship only existed online, why was he saying back then he had seen her at all? Also, we do know that Manti says he found out Lene was a fake on December 6th when he got a call from someone with her number and her voice who told him she wasn't dead. So why does he wait until the 26th, 20 days later, to tell his coaches? Notre Dame investigates and gets a report on January 4th. So why does the school wait until yesterday, till after reporters at Deadspin.com run an expose to go public? And crucially, getting back to Manti, if he knew on December 6th that he'd been scammed, why 2 days later did he once again talk about the girlfriend he's now supposed to know is fake, as if she were real? Listen.
I don't like cancer at all. You know, cancer, I lost both my grandparents and my girlfriend to cancer.
So again, he made that statement 2 days after he supposedly was informed of the hoax. Did he not understand? Was he confused? Was he embarrassed? Or was he in on it and trying to hide it? We have learned more about the timeline of events today. Here's what we know right now from Gary Tuckman.
You didn't have to be a big college football fan to hop on the Manti aTEO bandwagon this year. A star linebacker with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who nearly won the Heisman Trophy. Hard-hitting, but soft-spoken, and in love with a girlfriend he said he met 3 years ago after a game. Listen to how he described her to ESPN.
Possibly the most beautiful girl I've ever met. Not because of her physical beauty, but the beauty of her character and who she is. She was just that person that I turned to.
In the same interview, aTEO talked about learning that his girlfriend, Lene Kekua, had died from leukemia.
You know, I cried, I yelled. I've never felt that way before. And this is 6 hours ago. I just found out Grandma passed away, and you take, you know, the love of my life. Last thing she said to me was, "I love you." And that was it.
aTEO's grandmother did indeed pass away, but the woman he described as the most beautiful girl he'd ever met, the love of his life, never died. She also never lived. aTEO's version of the story goes like this. He says he met Lene in 2009 after a football game at Stanford. He described her as being his soulmate. They were together when they could be, he would say. aTEO's father also declared the couple spent time together in Hawaii. aTEO says his grandmother died last year on September 11th, and his girlfriend a few hours later. On September 22nd, aTEO says his girlfriend is buried, but he plays that day anyway against rival Michigan. It was at the time a heartbreaking and inspirational moment. After Notre Dame's victory, the coach honored the memory of aTEO's girlfriend with a game ball.
And I'd like Manti to have this ball to take back to Hawaii for her.
2 months later, he told a Chicago interviewer this.
The Michigan game, you know, when I lost my girlfriend and my grandma, that was possibly the hardest time of my life. And to see the Notre Dame community just rally around one person, you know, not a team, just a certain individual, and to see a whole stadium, both Notre Dame and Michigan fans wearing leis, you know, that's where I just looked up and said, Heavenly Father, you're the man. Like, 4 years ago, I couldn't see this, and all I saw was UFC fight on, national championships, and now I'm sitting here about to play Michigan after losing two women whom I truly love.
Then on December 6th, less than 3 months after Lene had supposedly died, aTEO's phone rings. He says on the other end is a voice that sounded like Lene, who was supposed to be dead. The voice says, I'm not dead. It was all a hoax. But then just 2 days later at the Heisman Trophy ceremony, aTEO talks about Lene as if he never got that call.
I don't like cancer at all, you know. Cancer, I lost both my grandparents and my girlfriend to cancer.
Then, 3 weeks later on December 26th, aTEO tells Notre Dame his version of events. University officials believe him, but say nothing publicly until this week.
Manti was the victim of that hoax. Manti is the victim of that hoax, and he will carry that with him for a while.
But many are now wondering why the university and aTEO stayed silent for so long. Was it to preserve the integrity of an investigation, or to preserve an inspirational myth in the lead-up to the national championship game?
And Gary Tuckman joins me now. Where is aTEO right now? Do you know what he's doing?
aTEO is right across the street from me right now, Anderson, here in Bradenton, Florida. This is the IMG Academy at the sports training facility, heavily secured. We can't get in, but he's with 35 college players right now. They're training for the very important NFL Combine, which is held next month in Indianapolis, and that's the event where NFL coaches and scouts go and decide who they're going to draft in April. So aTEO is inside there. He's had every chance to talk today. He knows there's media across the street. He's made the conscious decision not to talk, at least yet. A truly bizarre story, Anderson.
Yeah, Gary Tuckman, appreciate all the latest. Thanks. There's plenty to talk about right now with Tim Burke, who broke the story on Deadspin. Also, Sports Illustrated senior writer Michael Rosenberg. Tim, let's start with what we know. We know we haven't heard from him today. We know Notre Dame is still sticking by its claim he was the victim of the scam or an online identity deception. What we don't know seems endless at this point. Have you been able to fill in any blanks since we spoke last night?
Well, we have a couple, sort of fill in the blanks, with what we've been exposed to through journalists who have sort of shared their process in reporting the stories that we've now, shown to be bunk. We know at least where some of those words were coming from. We know that Brian aTEO, Manti's dad, was the source of that origin story, if you will, the 2009 meeting at Stanford. So that sort of shifts where our attention goes to the answers that we want. We started off wanting to know, when Manti found out, and now we really want to know who came up with that story, because that's really important. That's part of the romance here, and we've all been that once you introduce the story of Manti and Lene with that scene. It is a lens through which we view the rest of their tragic story, and those are the answers that we really want. And I suspect that if Manti puts out a conversation, which he was rumored to have one scheduled with Jeremy Schaap at ESPN today, that was later canceled. Whoever he talks to, I have a feeling that he's probably not going to answer that question for us.
So, Tim, also, do we know now who is behind, who was running this hoax, whether or not Manti was in on it, who the other players are?
Well, our original reporting said that it was this Tui Asasopo character and two of his cousins. We weren't told if, what the cousins' names were, but when we asked if one of them had to have been female, if he was going to be using this to actually hoax Manti aTEO, we were told yes. So we believe that there's 3 people who are part of this, but we know that the Tui Asasopo, Lene Kakua portrayal online has gone on for a long time. And now we've heard some rumors from an alleged uncle of the Tui Asasopos that says that he has done this leukemia scam other times before in other places. He was on a local radio show out west, and we can't really prove that it was actually, one of his uncles. But we're hearing lots of these stories from other people who know of this. This get sick from leukemia and die, and they wonder if it's designed to gain donations or something like that. We're hearing more and more that this guy's been doing this for a long time.
Michael, I know you want to be very clear. You don't know what happened. None of us really know what's happened, I guess, until Manti aTEO speaks or until there's more information that comes forward. I mean, in your gut, do you think he was a victim in this? Do you think he wasn't a victim? Do you think the truth lies somewhere in between?
I think it's somewhere in between. And first of all, congrats to Deadspin on outstanding work on this story. There is no reasonable explanation to any of this. I mean, it's all bizarre. So the question is, among the bizarre possibilities, what's the most reasonable? It seems more likely to me that maybe 3 people tricked Manti aTEO, duped him into believing this girl existed, and then he exaggerated the relationship for whatever reason, whether it was publicity or it just got out of hand or something else. That strikes me as more reasonable than him being in on it and knowing she was fictional and fooling his entire team for a long period of time and starting it 2 years ago. I find that difficult to believe, but let's face it, it's all difficult to believe.
Well, also, Michael, I don't understand, if on December 6th he gets this call from her phone or a number he associates with her and it's her voice saying it was a hoax, I'm not dead, and I'm not, Lene, then why 2 days later does he volunteer on a panel that his girlfriend has died?
Well, there is certainly no good explanation for that. I do think if he did exaggerate the relationship and did believe she was real, all of a sudden, among other things, he's thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done here? This person wasn't even real, and you panic and you cover for yourself. But you can also turn around and say, why would he turn around and tell Notre Dame officials that this was all a hoax if nobody had reason to suspect it before? On top of that, why would he say he was not involved? Wouldn't the co-conspirator, in this case, Tui Asasopo, be able to point to a bunch of evidence, emails, phone calls, whatever it is, that he was in on it? So the beauty of this story, and the reason so many people are talking about it, is that it's still a mystery even after it's out there. And there's enough evidence either side to make you believe what you want to believe.
Yeah, and we should say he waited 20 days to talk to university officials. I read that he wanted to tell his parents face-to-face, which, I mean, again, it's a lot of it just doesn't seem to add up. Tim, do you think, I mean, if he didn't talk to ESPN today, do you think he actually will do an interview at some point, or do you think he can kind of ride this out, or will try to ride it out?
I hope for his sake that he does try to ride it out, because I don't think there's a single thing that Manti aTEO can say right now that will improve his situation. He can either create new questions for us to ask, give us more evidence to work against him, or make him sound like even more of a naive, gullible person than he already had in the previous statement. His best bet, if I were his publicist, would be to tell him to answer no comment to every question about Lene Kakua for the rest of his career.
But Tim, if you hadn't broken this story, Deadspin hadn't broken this story, would we even know about this? I mean, because university didn't come forward, he hadn't come forward. Is there any evidence they had ever intended to come forward?
Well, Yahoo's Pat Forty released something today that said that the university wanted to release news about it on Monday, and that aTEO and his family stepped in and told them not to. And that, ESPN claims that they had been working on this for a considerable amount of time, and that they could have been close to publish. So, it's very convenient that both Notre Dame says they had the private investigation and ESPN, oh yeah, we knew all about that after we've published our story. But if you take him at face value, sure. As we illustrated in some posts today on Deadspin.com, there are so many contradictory statements in the story that as people would talk about Manti aTEO in the draft, they would go back to those stories, and eventually somebody, I think, would have found them.
Right. Tim Burke, I appreciate it again. You guys broke the story. Michael Rosenberg, appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much. Let us know what you think. Follow me on Twitter right now, @AndersonCooper. Been tweeting about this. What do you think about this? Does this make any sense to you? Is there an explanation? Let me know what you think. Up next, a filmmaker who fell for a woman online. His experience became the movie Catfish. That movie became a verb, getting catfish. They now have a series on MTV. I'll ask the filmmaker, Neve Schulman, whether he thinks Manti aTEO got catfished.